Hey there, students of economics, and welcome back to yet another teaching module titled Costs. Well, this is a part of a topic called Producer's Behavior. So are you ready to learn something new today? Then stay with me. Let's move on. In this teaching module, we will learn about costs and some concepts related to costs, which are total cost, total fixed cost, and total variable cost. Next, average cost, average fixed cost, and average variable cost. And lastly, marginal cost. All right, now let's begin. Just imagine that you are a producer. And as a producer, you are interested in making, yes, in making profits. I have a quote here for you to give you a cue or a hint as to what should be your mindset when you think of yourself as a producer in terms of costs, profit, and revenue. The quote here is by an industrialist, Andrew Carnegie. He was an industrialist who led the expansion of the American steel industry and went on to become one of the richest industrialists. So I think we can take some advice from him. He says, watch the costs and the profits will take care of themselves. Yeah? So now you understand why costs are so important for a producer, firm, or a business enterprise. All right then, now that you have got into the shoes of a producer or a firm or a business enterprise, let me ask you a question. When do you think you will make more profits? You will probably make more profits when you reduce the costs or when revenue increases due to an increase in price. What is revenue? When you sell your output and you multiply it by the price per unit sold, what you get is the revenue. For example, if I sell 20 ice creams at price ₹10 each, the revenue will be 200. If the price increases from 10 to ₹20 each unit of ice creams, 20 multiplied by 20 will be 400. That means the revenue has increased from 200 to 400. And as a result, so will the profits, right? Now I want you to consider that you have an ice cream factory. Who doesn't like ice creams, right? And opening an ice cream factory would be a lovely thing to do. Well, here are the resources or factors that will help you to bring about production. What are they? Let's name them. You have the ice cream making machinery, the tools and equipments, milk, milk cream, sugar, flavorings, basically all the ingredients, the managerial, technical, office staff, and marketing personnel. You have the packaging materials, paper cup, spoons, wrappers, and so on. The unskilled labor that you bring into the process of production as and when you want to increase the output in the short run. Freezers, yes, and factory building. There are various other factors that are related to production. It could be the loan amount that you take, the insurance that you go in for, and so on. Having listed all the factors that we need to combine and bring about production of ice creams, we can now classify them as being fixed and variable factors. So here we have the fixed factors, which is the ice cream making machinery, the equipment and tools, the various fixed labor that you have, the skilled labor, managers, technicians, engineers, office staff, administrative and marketing personnel, freezers, the freezing facilities that you have, the factory building that may be there, the loan and insurance. Yeah, so those are our fixed factors. Coming on to the variable factors, we have the ingredients listed here, milk, milk cream, sugar, flavorings, and so on. The unskilled labor, or the labor that we basically pay daily wages to, the packaging materials that will be used, paper cup, spoons, and so on, we just mentioned them earlier, and electricity, fuel, water supply, and perhaps even transport and wear and tear of machinery, if there. Until and unless you count your costs, you can't really start making profits. in the short run, you have factors that remain the same whether you produce or not. You call these factors the fixed factors. The costs of these factors are constant too. Secondly, you have factors that start getting used once the process of production starts. They are called the variable factors of production. These costs start increasing as outputs increase. Both the costs combined are your overall costs. It is now clear to us that the costs of the fixed factors are fixed costs, and the costs of the variable factors of production are variable costs. So let us look at the costs of production for the example that we are working with, that is the case of the ice cream factory. So the fixed costs for this ice cream factory would be costs of ice cream making machinery, equipment and tools, salaries of managerial, technical, office staff and marketing personnel, cost of freezers, rent on factory building, interest on loan and insurance premium. The variable costs would be cost of all the ingredients, wages to unskilled labor, cost of packaging, materials, paper cups and so on, costs of electricity, fuel, water supply and perhaps even transport. Let us now define what are costs. Cost refers to the expenditure incurred by a producer on factor inputs and non-factor inputs for a given amount of output of a commodity. We can also define it like this. Cost refers to the expenditure incurred by a producer on fixed factors and variable factors for a given amount of output of a commodity. We know that it is in the short run that we have fixed factors and variable factors. So in the short run, total costs will be equal to total fixed costs and total variable costs. So fixed costs are the cost of the fixed factors of production, and variable costs are the cost of the variable factors of production. So TC, that is total cost, is equal to TFC, that is total fixed cost, plus TVC, that is total variable cost. Let us now define what are fixed costs. Fixed costs are the sum total of expenditure incurred by the producer on purchase or hiring of fixed factors of production. They are also called supplementary costs, overhead costs, or indirect costs. These costs do not change with a change in output. Even when output is zero, fixed costs remain the same. Let us now list some of the important components of fixed costs. The first, expenditure on machines, plants, equipments, tools, and so on. Second, expenditure on land and building, rent on factory premises. Third, expenditure on capital, that is a loan that might be taken. That is interest, which is the price of capital. Then license fees and related expenses. Fourthly, wages to unskilled labor and salaries of skilled labor and permanent staff. And fifth, insurance premium. Now, what are variable costs? Variable costs are the expenditures incurred by the producers on the use of variable factors of production. When output changes, these costs also change. As the output increases, these costs also increase. When output is zero, obviously variable costs are zero. They are related to the volume of production. So unlike fixed factors or cost of fixed factors, which they are not related to the volume of production. They will be there even if no output is produced or even if the firm is closed down for a while. However, variable costs are related to the volume of production. In other words, they are related to the output that is produced. What are the variable costs? Here is a list of some of them. Purchase of raw materials, wages of unskilled labor, expenses on fuel, electricity, transport and water supply, depreciation or wear and tear expenses. Here is an illustration showing fixed costs versus variable costs. So you have the cost of production, which is the cost or expenditure paid to produce goods. You have fixed costs which remain the same or stay the same throughout the process of production, irrespective of whether any output is produced or not. On the other hand, you have variable costs which change with a change in the output. Here are some examples of fixed costs. You have rent on factory premises or building or land. You have insurance premiums paid. You have the cost of equipment, salaries to skilled labor. Some examples of variable costs are shown here. Raw materials, hourly wages or daily wages or weekly wages to unskilled labor, shipping or transportation costs, and commissions. Let us now define what are total costs. Total cost includes both total fixed costs and total variable costs. It is the sum of all the expenditures incurred by a producer for producing a given volume of output using fixed and variable factors. So you see a depiction here. The sum total of total fixed cost and total variable cost is total costs. Let us now study another concept of costs, and that is average cost or AC. What is average cost? It is the cost per unit of output produced. So the cost per unit of output produced is called average cost. If we want to know how much it costs to produce each unit of the output, then we will want to know the value of average cost. The average cost can be obtained by dividing the total cost, that is TC, by the quantity of output, that is Q. It can also be found out by adding average fixed costs and average variable costs. So here we have the formula AC, that is average cost, is equal to TC, that is total cost, divided by the quantity of output. And AC is also equal to AFC plus AVC, AFC being average fixed cost and AVC being average variable cost. So here is another depiction of the formula. Average total cost formula is equal to total cost of production divided by quantity of units produced. So if it costs 400 rupees to produce 2 units of the output, then per unit cost of production is 200. How did we get that? The cost of production, that is 400 divided by 2. So the answer would be 200. So the average cost of producing 2 units of the output is 200. Let us now study what is average fixed cost or AFC. Average fixed cost is the fixed cost per unit of the output. The average fixed cost is obtained by dividing TFC, that is total fixed cost, by the quantity of output produced. So AFC is equal to TFC divided by Q. Suppose the total fixed cost was 2 lakh rupees and the quantity of output produced of the particular product would be 2000 units. So 2 lakh divided by 2000 units is rupees 100. So the average fixed cost is rupees 100. What is average variable cost or AVC? Average variable cost is the variable cost per unit of the output. It is obtained by dividing TVC, that is total variable cost, by the quantity of output produced. AVC, that is average variable cost, is equal to total variable cost divided by the quantity of output produced. Suppose the total variable cost was 3 lakh rupees and the quantity produced was 2000 units of the output. When we divide, we get 150. That means the average variable cost is rupees 150. Here is a small recap of the three concepts: average cost, average fixed cost, and average variable costs. The cost per unit of output produced is called average cost. Average fixed cost is the fixed costs per unit of the output. Average variable cost is the variable costs per unit of the output. Let's go on to the next concept of cost, which is marginal cost. What is marginal cost? It is the addition to the total cost by the production of an additional unit of the good, or it is the change in the total cost by producing one more unit of the commodity. We have a formula to find marginal cost, which is MCN equals to TCN minus TCN minus 1. So we substitute N for a number, say for example 3, the third unit of output produced. So MC at the third unit produced is TC at the third unit minus TC at the second unit. So what is the total cost at the third unit of output produced? It is 58. And what is the total cost at the second unit of the output produced? It is 45. So 58, that is TC3, minus 45, that is TC2, is 13. So we get it like this: 45 minus 30 is 15, 58 minus 45 is 13, 73 minus 58 is 15. Having learned the various concepts of cost and their formulae, we are now in a position to be able to fill up the cells in the table. On the outset, we will be given the output, that is from 0 to 3, and the total cost at the respective level of output. Let us begin by filling up the first column, and that is the total fixed cost. Well, we learned that fixed costs will be there irrespective of whether something is produced or nothing. So you got to look at what is the total cost when output is 0. You take that number and you fill up the entire column with that value. So you get 60 throughout. Having done that, that was easy really. Having done that, we'll move on to the third column, which is total variable cost. That's very easy to find out. It's total cost minus total fixed cost. So total cost minus total fixed cost. 60 minus 60 will give you 0. 78 minus 60 will give you 18. 90 minus 60 will give you 30. 102 minus 60 will give you 42. Let's fill up the next column, which is average fixed cost. To fill up the average fixed cost column, you got to look at the total fixed cost column and the output column. So TFC divided by output, 60 divided by 0, 60 divided by 1, 60 divided by 2, 60 divided by 3 will give us our values of AFC. 60 divided by 0 is infinity, 60 divided by 1 is 60, 60 divided by 2 is 30, and 60 divided by 3 is 20. Let's move on to AVC. If AFC is TFC upon Q, then AVC is TVC upon Q. So this column here, 0 divided by 0 obviously is 0. 18 divided by 1 is 18. 30 divided by 2 is 15. 42 divided by 3 is 14. Now the next column that we gotta find is AC. You can get AC in two ways. Either you sum up AFC and AVC, because the sum total of average fixed cost and average variable cost is the average cost. Or you can alternatively go to the TC column, divide it by Q, or the units of output. So go to this column and divide it by the level of output. But the best way to do is add up AFC and AVC since we have the columns close by. So the value here would definitely be infinity again. 68 plus 18 is 78. 30 plus 15 is 45. 20 plus 14 is 34. Then we go on to the marginal cost column. Now marginal cost column, you will have to look at the total cost column. So 0, there is basically no change. So it would be We just put a blank value there. Now we move on to TCN, that is TC1 minus TC0. So 78 minus 60 is 18. Then you go to TC2 minus TC1, that is 90 minus 78, which is 12. Then TC3, that is 102 minus TC2, that is 90. So we get 12 again. This is how you fill up your table. Now to sum up what we've learned today in this teaching module, we've learned about costs, fixed costs, variable costs, average and marginal costs. Thank you students for giving me a listening ear. Having come to the end of this teaching module, I hope the concepts that you have learned in producer's behavior and the cost part of it has interested you. And perhaps a little bug of, starting a business might have even entered into you. Well, feed that bug, because in today's world, it would be better to be self-employed rather than to work for someone else. Maybe you could produce something. Maybe you could start a small business, a shop, even go into marketing and distribution and so on. You really don't know where you can start off. It can be a little spark that can turn into a fire. And I really hope that this would be the beginning of something big for you.